This is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint. Now, your host, James Just.
And welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint. I am your host, James Just. With me today is Mr. Richard Fields, and our guest is Mark Hinkle, retired Libertarian Party chair, and he's our correspondent today from the California Libertarian Convention, so we can kind of discuss what happened there over this weekend. So, Mark, the Libertarian Convention, the party's been in its, shall we say, flux. Well, we'll use a nice term. Party's been in flux the last year or two. So, tell us what kind of transpired this weekend, and or last weekend, my apologies, and, is it setting a new path forward?
Yes, indeed. I'm very pleased with the results of the convention. There was a lot of worry and concern about what was going into the convention. We figured a battle royale would take place, but frankly, it was a delight. Adrian F. Malecon, the former chair of the party, was very apt at running the meeting, interject a fair amount of humor. And for those of you who know the inside scoop here, he actually nominated me to be an at-large rep for the state executive committee. And Adrian and I have butted heads for quite some time, but looks like we've kissed and made up this weekend. And there was very little controversy regarding who got elected for the state chair, northern vice chair. Might Deb tell into that. Going into the weekend, we knew there were two people running for LPC chair, Lauren Dean and Pat Wright. Lauren Dean from Riverside County, Pat Wright from San Diego County. For those who are not aware, Pat Wright, it goes way back several decades as LPC chair. And again, for those who are old enough, you might remember that Pat Wright championed the legalization of ferrets in California, and actually got a fair amount of publicity. He actually had a full-page picture of him holding a ferret in People magazine, of all places, which libertarians don't usually get that amount of publicity. And so the vote was fairly close, I think 47 to 43. So it was a relatively close decision, but Lauren Dean is the new chair, and he seems like a guy very easy to work with. And the major tenet for him is he wants to be the chair that more like a project manager. So members of the executive committee all sign up for various tasks or projects that they want to pursue. And Lauren Dean will say, okay, what do we need to make that happen? And what can I do to facilitate making things happen? So it was a decided different strategy rather than just being sort of a legislative body that doesn't really do anything. It just dictates policy. This is actually going to be a can-do, will-do executive committee. So pretty pleased with that. And overall, I think there's a nice mix, maybe a little extra mix of old standby libertarians, people like me who've been around for 5 decades, and some new folks who are relatively new to the Libertarian Party, but seem very able and capable. And I think we have 3 women on the executive committee, which is a little higher than average, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, they have to be higher than average, but that the average is that low. Well, we've got Rebecca Lau, who returned from New York, working for John Stossel as the new secretary. And I'll have to look at my notes to see who else was elected. June Jennis. June Jennis used to live up in San Mateo County, and she is a long time libertarian, and now she's on the executive committee as well. So we've got some old farts and some new farts that are now on the committee. And again, overall, I was very pleased. our ace benefactor, Chris Roofer. We held the convention in his hotel, which was very nice, and out in the Central Valley in Santa Mila. It was kind of a windy couple of days out there, but it was a very nice hotel, good grub, and everything went off without a hitch. And of course, Barbara Engelhardt from your neck of the woods was the manager of the convention, and she did a stellar job. I think there were very few unhappy folks, and everybody gave her a round of applause several times during the convention. So all in all, pretty nice convention. And again, no blood on the floor, and I definitely got a sense of unity, and so just terribly pleased.
Considering the trials and tribulations of the last few years, that's kind of good to hear. You got anything to add or questions out there, Richard?
Well, just as a side note, I remember, I'm pretty sure, if my memory is correct, and it may not be because I'm getting old, but if my memory is correct, Pat Wright was once on the Libertarian counterpoint advocating for the legalization of ferrets as pets back in the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. And so that, just a little historical note there. He's been around for a while and been doing a good job. I'm sure that he probably is going to be supporting the party going forward, even though he lost by a hair as far as party chairman.
Well, and Lauren Dean, who's a very articulate sort of guy, and I got a pretty good glimpse that I think he's got a little bit of genius in him when it comes to party politics.
We need that.
Initially, I planned to run for vice chair under Pat Wright. But when Pat Wright lost the chair's position, Lauren Dean approached Pat and said, "Why don't you be my vice chair?" Which I thought was a stroke of genius politically. And Pat was happy to do it. Pat wants to focus on membership growth, which obviously is one of the key things that we need to get done, because our membership is a bit on the low side right now. In fact, the majority of our dues-paying members are actually lifetime members. So we need to grow the Libertarian Party considerably. And again, the infighting over the last couple of years, I think, did much to discourage the old-timers and the new-timers to participate because of the toxic atmosphere. But that toxic atmosphere is flittered away and hopefully never to return. But of course, with libertarians, you never know.
We do like to fight with each other, don't we? It seems to kind of cycle back and forth, which is something we should consider going forward, right?
You know the old rule: when you have two libertarians in a room, you have three positions on any given issue, right?
Yeah, that is kind of one of our issues. Speaking of issues, Mr. Fields, you have an issue you want to discuss today, so let's have your report from the fields this week.
Yeah, well, let me just kind of segue into this. Richard Fields here with this week's report from the fields. Back in 1998, I was outside the venue for a debate between the Republican and the Democratic candidates for governor of California, along with the now deceased Steve Cubby and several other people. We were protesting the exclusion of Cubby, the LP Libertarian candidate, from the debates. Some wise guy, Democratic Party from Davis, whose name will remain unmentioned, he was a Democratic Party operative who would later become a judge, I believe a Superior Court judge, made a smart remark wondering why libertarians should care about running for office since they clearly don't believe in government. Much to his surprise, I responded by saying, "We run for office to protect ourselves from thieving jerks like him." And when you get right down to it, that remains the reason for libertarian involvement in politics. We don't seek to gain economic advantage through regulation or trade rules over our fellow humans. We simply want to have a fair opportunity to earn our way and the freedom to spend or save our earnings as we wish. We don't seek to force others to conform to our lifestyle choices. We merely seek to make our own lifestyle choices free of coercion from others. Alas, history is cyclical. The sociopaths and schemers who want to take our stuff without paying for it and dictate our lifestyle choices naturally gravitate toward politics where they can enforce their graft and control issues through law. That works for them, not for us, until it doesn't. Eventually, the takers in society overwhelm the makers and the system implodes. We recently saw that happen in Argentina with the election of Javier Milei. It took 80 years of Peronism, a particularly malicious blend of fascism and socialism, before it could happen. Where's the United States in that cycle today? Well, the progressives, that's a nicer sounding pseudonym for socialism and fascism, they got their start in the early years of the 20th century. Let's use 1913 as a turning point. That's when the Federal Reserve was created. It moved interest rates, the most important price in any economy, the price of money, away from market control and toward political control, where it is today. As a result, our money has lost 97% of its purchasing power. And as a side result of that, a huge majority of the wealth in this country has moved from the working class and the middle class directly into the pockets of the financial class or the elite class, which controls the government. But the real acceleration of that process came after Nixon decoupled the dollar from gold in 1971. It took 80 years for Argentina to overthrow the Peronists. 80 years from 1971 takes us to 2051. Does that mean that cyclically we have another 25 years of turmoil before we throw out the Democratic and Republican charlatans who are now in control? Maybe. And that would mean another 25 years of tumult and unpleasantness. But maybe we can shorten the cycle. I'm encouraged by the premiere of season 27 of Trey Parker and Matt Stone's South Park. It demonstrates literally that the emperor has no clothes by depicting a naked, small-penised Trump trying to seduce Satan. Unlike Britain, political satire is still alive and well in the United States. Will the Libertarian Party be in a place to pick up the pieces when the American empire dies? The convention last weekend in the Central Valley is an encouraging sign. And the performance of the party in the 2024 election was not particularly encouraging. And no, I'm not casting aspersions on any of our candidates. But we've struggled and come back from worse conditions in the past. Does anybody remember the Michael Badnarik or Bob Barr campaigns in 2004 and 2008? Remember, it was followed by the record-setting campaign of Gary Johnson in the two following elections. Libertarians need to unite and keep the flame of liberty lit for when our opportunity comes. And it eventually will come. That's this week's Report from the Fields. I'm Richard Fields. See you again next week.
Thank you, Richard.
Nicely
it's
said.
Always an insightful view there. Hey, Mark, you got any comment on Richard's commentary? There we go.
Yeah, very nicely said. And Richard, I have run, I think, 8, maybe 9 times for office. And more than once, a reporter asked me, well, Mark, you're running for state assembly. You got no chance of winning in a 3-way race with a Republican Democrat. I said, why are you running? And my response is always, if I were not running, would you be talking to me? Pure and simple.
Yeah, it is a relatively simple equation there, isn't it? As someone who's run for office, it's if you don't run for office, nobody knows you're there. And I was talking to people at the state fair booth this weekend, says, we've got to start running locally. I says, the problem is we need to do both, because those people who are running for the higher offices give credibility to those who are running for the lower ones. And the people who can win at the lower ones give credibility to the people at the higher ones. They actually need each other. You can't do one without the other and be successful long term. That's kind of been my philosophy on that for a little bit. But I want to talk about reasons why I run for office. We've kind of got a laundry list of these things today with why I would like to run for office. If you guys don't mind moving on. Sacramento has been caught red-handed SMUD, our local utility district, our public utility district, has been using smart meters to spy on residents and then reporting it to police if they have whoever somebody considers a too high of a usage. Trying to catch marijuana grows, I think, is the alleged excuse. I mean, why do we put up with this stuff, and why am I not surprised? There's the two questions on this.
Well, I'm not surprised because government will go after anybody that they can if they think they have a case, and with all of the complex and myriad laws governing the legal production of marijuana, it's a heck of a lot easier for a lot of producers to continue to grow it illegally with grow lamps and so forth. And what's disturbing, I think, is that SMUD, which unfortunately is a publicly owned or government-owned utility, that they are so willing and eager to cooperate with what is, I would think, an unconstitutional investigation. It would seem to me to violate the Fourth Amendment against unreasonable search and seizure, because they're not presenting a warrant to go into people's homes and monitor their electricity usage. They're just doing it simply because the police request it. That seems to me there's a case there for somebody that wants to take it on. I'm not sure whether it would get anywhere in today's court system, but it should.
Yeah. Well, Richard, you bring up a good point about, we have this very strange system where pot is legal in California, and I put that in quotes because, of course, they can't accept credit cards for purchases.
Yeah.
So everything is cash. And what is the unintended consequences of that? Well, guess what? Some of these places have to hire overnight guards to guard the place in case to prevent robbery and thievery of the cash. And so, and of course, marijuana is a what scheduled drug from the federal government standpoint? Schedule 2, like heroin, which is ridiculous. So,
and not only that, but in, I think it's Riverside County, the sheriff's deputies have cooperated with the feds to actually hold up a armed transport of cash, saying it's using the federal laws to seize the cash. I don't think they got by with it. I think they eventually had to give the money back. But that just shows you how far local sheriff's departments and police departments are willing to go simply to pad the coffers and buy new police cars and new uniforms and new assault vehicles or whatever they do with that money.
Yeah. And again, the standard regulations that get imposed on all businesses, but especially the marijuana business, that drives up the cost. And when it drives up the cost, guess what? Black market pot is cheaper than legal pot. So one of the promises of making pot legal here in California was it would drive away the black market. Well, guess what? Missed it by that much.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and in California, it's so complicated to start a pot store that the legislature said, okay, we're going to create another layer of bureaucracy to help people navigate the bureaucracy. Not said, oh, this is so bad, let's reduce the bureaucracy. No, we're going to add a layer of bureaucracy to help people navigate the bureaucracy. It's insanity on top of insanity.
One of the guys that used to be a guest on the show in Davis went in and who does not use marijuana or any other drug for that matter, tried to, but is a consultant to the legal medical or marijuana business, tried to open a store in Davis and was turned down probably because he was too active politically. It was a political decision who got the store at 400 at a very choice address in Davis.
Yeah.
And when people wonder why businesses are fleeing California. Little side note, many people know me and my wife. My wife is an architect. And we had a dinner with one of our clients last week to celebrate that they got a building permit to open up a restaurant down in Gilroy. Start to finish to get the permit, let me put my finger on 1 year it took. Now that they've got the permit, of course, now they can start remodeling the restaurant. So by the time it actually gets open, I'm guessing 15, 16 months from start to finish. That's ridiculous. And again, do they want sales tax revenue from that store? Well, apparently not, because they won't let the store open in less than a year.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the arguments I make about stuff like this, in order to get a restaurant open, of course, they have to get a permit, which means they have to hire an architect, they have to hire a structural engineer, they have to hire a bunch of technicians regarding HVAC and freezers and cooking stoves and all that. Where does all that money come from to pay for all these expertise? Customers of the restaurant, right? So when the customer goes to the restaurant, everything is going to cost more because of all the bureaucracy that had to be waded through in order to open up the restaurant. And I think historically, restaurants, like 19 out of the 20 fail within 2 or 3 years. So it's a high risk endeavor to begin with, and add all that bureaucracy on top of it. Man, that's fatal.
And we have a homeless problem, and guess how hard it is to build a home. I have a close personal relationship with somebody who is trying to build a house on a rural parcel in Amador County, which is probably the least regulated county in California in terms of county rules. But they still have to obey the state rules and the county rules that apply. And they're going through hoops just to build a house on an undeveloped piece of land out in the foothills. It's it's a months long, if not years long, process just to get the permits to do it.
Yeah. Which brings up an issue. Governor Newsom and the Republicans are arguing over redistricting again. So let's, So in Texas, it's time to redistrict their maps. And so Republicans are, of course, going to gerrymander their district. Well, so now California is claiming that now that we're going to have to gerrymander our state in order to counterbalance the Texas gerrymandering their state, which is two problems. One, our state is already gerrymandered to 3 inches of its life. And two, we have, for whatever reason, the Democrats supported this California Redistricting Commission to give legitimacy to their gerrymandering, and now they're just going to want to ignore it. Is essentially what Newsom is proposing, that the legislature just kind of ignore this redistricting commission that they had the voters approve. So I don't know. It seems to me that these guys can't stop shooting themselves in the foot, showing that they're just massive hypocrites.
Yeah, and I could get excited about this issue if I thought there was, as who was it, Wallace, back in the day said there was a dime's difference between Democrats and Republicans. But when they get in office, they all do the same thing, which is get rich because they're able to trade on insider information, and they move from the legislature back to the regulatory agency, back and forth. In government, out of government, and get high-paid lobbying jobs. It's a closed loop. They're in it. We're not.
Well, look at the number of millionaires that come out of the U.S. Congress.
Yeah, amazing. There's even a mutual fund or a ETF, I forget which it is, that trades on Nancy Pelosi's stock trades.
Exactly right. Yeah, because she apparently knows how to pick them.
Yep.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah, from a libertarian perspective, this is nothing new, right, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely nothing new. Well, and no one seems to be terribly concerned that California is going to lose 3 to 5 representatives in Congress because that many people have moved out of California. And, I'm 74 years old and I can't quit working. This is something that just literally hit us a couple months ago. All the concern about the wildfires and PG&E and the electric companies starting wildfires. Well, I happen to live in the rural district. And so all the insurance companies have jacked up their homeowners insurance. Mine went from $4,000 a year to $11,000 a year. I'm paying almost $1,000 a month for property insurance. And do I have any options? Not really. Because I have a mortgage, I have to have property insurance. And so my property insurance now is more expensive than my property taxes, which is also about $10,000 a year. So I'm paying about $21,000 a year on top of the mortgage.
Yeah, and the reason that insurance costs have gone up so much is because of regulatory mistakes, let's put it very politely, on how to manage the brush that accumulates and leads to wildfires in California.
Exactly right. Well, and yeah, and that, to delve further into that issue, because the logging industry is pretty much shut down in California, all the timbered road, back roads that would allow firefighters to get to closer to the fire, they're all overgrown. And so they're impassable. So that means you got to bring in, those super tankers and airdrop retardants and water on the fires. And of course, when the fire erupts, tens of thousands of acres can be destroyed, and not to mention the number of houses, restaurants, towns, entire towns,
cities
have been destroyed.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Unintended consequences, right?
Yeah, these guys care more about their political futures rather than actually solving the problems of the day, right? They're going to worry about redistricting to counterbalance Texas's redistricting rather than, hey, Californians have some real problems that they've created and they need to solve. And as Rome burns, quite literally, they're fiddling with the furniture. It's absurd. All right, we've got a few seconds left. Richard, you got any final thoughts?
Richard, you going first?
I'm sorry. Final thoughts on
anything, Richard. We're out of time, so you got.
Okay, I'll just say I'm glad that Mark and the people who were ambitious enough to go to the Central Valley for a convention last weekend made it and did a good job.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Richard, for being here. Thank you for watching. For those of you who stopped by the fair booth this week and told me that you watched, thank you guys for watching. You are the reason we're here. Have a good night, and please remember to love everybody.
This is Gail Morgan thanking you for watching the Libertarian Counterpoint each Thursday at 8 p.m. Channel 17 on Comcast, on YouTube, and on Facebook. We invite you to come again next week for the Libertarian Counterpoint.